9 new COVID-19 cases bring total to 50. Risk of further spread of the virus. World Health Organization issues warning on coronavirus for Southeast Asia. Police curfew imposed on several police divisions in Puttalam and in Negombo Kochikade until further notice. All inbound international passenger flights to PIA to be suspended from 4 AM tomorrow. Several parties call on the President to summon Parliament and postpone the election for the benefit of the people.
Testing one. Audio testing one, mic testing one, mic testing one. Good evening to our viewers. Good evening to you, John. 9 new coronavirus or COVID-19 cases were confirmed in the country today. During a media briefing at the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19, it was revealed that the number of coronavirus patients currently receiving treatment in Sri Lanka and confirmed cases rather have increased to 50.
Yesterday we said that the number of affected patients stood at 43. These figures were released following a double count using information obtained from the laboratory and the hospitals. There was an error concerning the count. Accordingly, the number of patients currently stands at 50. The ECR test is being carried out at the MRI, the University of Sri Jayawarnethapura, the Karapitiya Teaching Hospital, Kandy General Hospital and the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital. We hope to introduce this test in more government hospitals. We have decided to allow private hospitals to carry out these tests as well under strict conditions. We request private hospitals to conduct these tests at a cost not more than 6,000 rupees. We have also imposed restrictions on the visitors of patients at state hospitals. Those who were in the Turf Club tent during the Battle of the Blues big match encounter have also been advised to self-quarantine themselves for 14 days. We wish to inform them to self-isolate themselves as well.
Meanwhile, a police curfew was imposed in 11 police divisions in Puttalam, 7 police divisions in Chillav and the Kochikade area in Negombo from 4:30 PM. The curfew will be in effect until further notice.
This is not a curfew that is imposed when there is disturbance in the country. This has been imposed to keep with the Quarantine and Prevention of Disease Ordinance to protect the people from the disease. We expect the public to abide by this regulation. If the person does not take heed of the curfew and travels in vehicles or motorcycles during these periods, we will seize their vehicle under the quarantine laws. We have permitted vehicles to travel through the area in which a curfew has been imposed, if they are heading towards another area. However, these vehicles will be subjected to frequent checks by the police. Those involved in handing over nominations for the general election will also be given permission to travel for that purpose tomorrow. We request everyone to refrain from taking part in education excursions and trips. If we observe that vehicles are being used for that purpose, we will seize them as well. From today onwards, we have instructed all 499 police stations to set up 2 police roadblocks at each main junction and main road. We have been informed that some people are playing cricket in groups. We request the general public to avoid coming into contact with each other. Some tourists have arrived in the country and are residing in hotels. We have also seen reports claiming that some tourists are not being treated properly by the public. We also request owners of hotels in which tourists are residing in to explain to the tourists that this is a situation in all countries. Therefore, we request the tourists to avoid engaging in trips. 2 coronavirus patients who are receiving treatment at the Infectious Diseases Hospital are recovering. The hospital said the final reports on the 2 patients will be received tomorrow. One of the patients is the second tour guide who was infected with the virus. The IDH added that the first tour guide tested positive for the virus and was in a critical condition but is now recovering. The Ministry of Health said that 212 suspected patients of COVID-19 are receiving treatment at hospitals including the IDH. Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan Army said the construction activities of the Special Treatment Unit at the Valikanda Hospital will be completed today. Spokesperson of the Sri Lanka Army, Brigadier Chandana Wickramasinghe, said all facilities required to treat the patients are available at the special unit without any hindrance. The special unit is being established at the Valikanda Hospital to accommodate excess patients who cannot receive treatment at the IDH due to lack of space. In reporting President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's meeting with the task force on the prevention of COVID-19 in our primetime news bulletin last night, Newsfirst translated President's statement when Prime Minister referred to partner of the Foreign Ministry official to be her husband. Newsfirst would like to correct this to note that President reference to partner is not the husband but to the business partner of the husband. We deeply regret the error. We will now look at the statement once again.
We all must act responsibly and intelligently during a crisis like this. The general public must not panic. This is not a complicated matter. The situation is not such that we have to quarantine the entire country. I've been thinking about this matter for the past 2 days. I have discussed this matter with the army as well. We have restricted arrivals from many countries in order to prevent the virus from entering Sri Lanka. Since the 10th of March, arrivals from South Korea and Italy have been sent to quarantine centers. We are also in the process of monitoring arrivals from other countries. They all need to be quarantined, either self-quarantined inside their houses or in separate quarantine centers. The Royal Thomian match took place without taking heed of what we said. I spoke to a monk today and asked if he could meet me. He said he will not be able to do so as his driver was taking a group of people to Adams Peak this morning. Therefore, is there any purpose of declaring closures? There was a lady employed at Ministry of Foreign Relations. Her husband is a gem businessman who had returned from Germany. As soon as he was tested positive for the virus, I informed intelligence units to inquire into his business partner as he would definitely be affected. The business partner had fled his residence. He wasn't answering his telephone as well. He had gone to 3 hospitals and had conducted himself in an irresponsible manner despite being educated. I instructed to file a case regarding this. The others should learn a lesson. We came across a person who was identified with the virus in Gaul. When we inquired regarding him, we learned that he was a resident of Kulia. We asked the entire family of his patient to be quarantined. However, he never told us that he went to visit his father in Gaul. When I analyzed those who had been affected, it is clear as to how they had contracted the disease. This virus had not spread to a large extent. Therefore, if we quarantine these people, we can easily control this situation.
The World Health Organization or the WHO has issued a warning to the Southeast Asian region owing to the rapid spike in COVID-19 cases in this particular region, especially instructed countries in this region to take all possible steps to mitigate and curb the spread of the virus.
Poonam Ketrapal Singh, Regional Director of the WHO Southeast Asia region, said yesterday that more clusters of virus transmissions are being confirmed. Southeast Asian region is home to more than a quarter of the world's population. 8 out of 11 countries in the region have reported COVID-19 cases. These countries include Thailand, Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal and Bhutan.
Now we can have a look at how the situation in Sri Lanka in comparison to the other countries in terms of the number of patients expanded. You can see very clearly there is a rise in the number of patients in this region when in comparison to the large population in other countries. Positive cases being reported in Sri Lanka is at an exponential growth. However, China, the epicenter, the origin of the virus, has started to use a technology that can immediately detect those who have contracted the virus. Now, if you take a look at the fundamental reasons as to why the virus is spreading at a rapid pace, I'm sure our producers will be able to put this up on the screen. Yes, we have it now. This is how the coronavirus affected the countries with the highest number of cases during the first week alone. If you can draw your attention to all the way here, during the first day, the number of patients reported from Italy was at 3, Iran 0, Spain to another country where there is a high number of coronavirus patients reported. Germany stood at 16 and Sri Lanka stood at 1. And on the second day, Italy stood at the same number, Germany stood at the same number, along with Iran and Spain also at the same number. However, Sri Lanka went up by 1 more patient and went up to 2. Now, the third day, while there is not much of an increase in terms of the other countries, Sri Lanka, there was an increase and the patient number went up to 3. Again, fourth day it went up to 5. Fifth day it went up to 7, 6th day it went up to 10, while the other countries were also increasing. and on the 7th day it went up by 15. This is the first week of how the disease spread among the Sri Lankans reported in the country. Now we are bringing this information to you again, as we have been reporting to you throughout, not to make the general public more afraid or panic regarding the situation, but to have a better understanding of the seriousness that we as a country are facing right now. This is the curve, or this is the graph with regard to the first week, and we can see the exponential growth that we spoke about. Now, what are the reasons for this increase of patients, you may ask? One was that the people who were brought to be quarantined tending to panic and behaving in an insecure manner at these quarantine locations. This could be depicted as one reason why this growth could be seen in the number of patients. Now this has of course gone into the second week, and we know the number of patients at the moment today too. 9 more patients were confirmed. A second possible reason could have been the Italian nationals touring in the country and the tour guides who have contracted the virus, traveling across many parts of the country as well. A businessman who was carrying the virus, visiting many private hospitals and delaying to receive treatment from a designated hospital was also another case where this was spreading widely. A pilot who had contracted the disease attended a big match, a school cricket match. That too may have caused an inter-school match, and that too could have caused another issue. An Indian national carrying the virus admitting himself to a normal ward for treatment, not having information on people who have evaded the quarantine procedure, and initial delay in finding such people. Now these are few of the information that are available to the general public to ascertain why this COVID-19 virus had spread in the country in this manner. Now, taking all of these factors into consideration, do we have the ability to determine the seriousness or the spread of the disease is a question that can be asked. Now, yesterday, the head of the COVID-19 Prevention National Operation Center was established, and the head was appointed the Chief of Defence Staff and Army Commander, Lieutenant General Shamendra Silva. Today too, a media conference was held at that location to make the general public aware of the situation in the country. Let's have a listen to what was said there this afternoon.
As of now, we started off with 2 quarantine centers and we have gone up to 16. And as of today, we got 2,287 to be quarantined, of which 21 were foreigners. At the quarantine centers, we got 19 who were affected coronavirus. And importantly, out of this 19, one from person who came from UK, others who came from Italy. And out of this 18, all these 18 came from Kandakadu Quarantine Center. And one thing what we have to highlight here is that Quarantine Center Kandakadu has got about 13 buildings. These 13 buildings will be divided into 26 parts, and out of these 26 parts, only from 3, all these 18 were found. Balance are not found. Anything is affected. And also, I would like to tell that all of these, except for maybe 2 or 3, all other, at the time of they came in quarantine center, they had fever. Or small number, within next 24 hours, 48 hours, they had some symptoms, although they were found yesterday or today. So therefore, we have been, the government who took steps to establish our quarantine centers have been successful. The way that we have done it, we can be happy about it. That is why we have been able to curtail. The other thing is how this will be spread out. If we are curtailing all these things inside the quarantine centers, the balance is about the people who have come to Sri Lanka from abroad. So the government took another measure requesting those came from abroad, first of all, to get registered at the various police stations. And they have given a very positive note. As far as we are concerned, up to now, more than 4,000 had got registered here. In the meantime, the government requested them to be self-quarantined inside their houses. This is the only worry that we have. Provided that they are disciplined and they get quarantined within the houses, then of course there's a great chance for us to prevent this being spread out. If they try to move out here and there, as mentioned even the previous days, then there's opportunity. Now, people of Sri Lanka, we have been a very hospitable people to foreigners. This is what the world knows about Sri Lankan. Doing all that, we are getting few reports to say that some are trying to ill-treat, especially people whom they feel that they have come from Italy also. We don't have to do that. They have come here to visit our lovely, beautiful nation, and thereby we should not have any sort of any harassment or any ill treatment for them. Very earnestly request the foreigners who are in the country, curtail your visits or curtail your move here and there. This is not only pertaining to Sri Lanka. This is the world. All countries are facing this. And also, we would like to ask from the hoteliers, the hotel owners, and even the other owners of the restaurants, and please try to brief or try to advise the foreigners who are in the country, try to refrain from moving out and trying to get affected.
Well, those were the views expressed by the Army commander at the media briefing this afternoon. They are using this media briefing to update the general public about the situation and the steps that have been taken to control the spread of the virus here in Sri Lanka. Another step that has been taken to control the spread of the virus in Sri Lanka was announced by the Airport and Aviation Services Sri Lanka. They said that inbound international passenger flights to Sri Lanka will be temporarily suspended after 4 a.m. tomorrow.
Since this morning until 4 p.m, 7 flights have arrived at the BIA. From that, 117 passengers have come to Sri Lanka. When you comparatively see, the amount of people coming into Sri Lanka has decreased. 17 departures and 20 arrivals are to take place today. From 4 a.m. tomorrow, we are hoping to suspend all arrivals except for special reasons. Meanwhile, a special flight was scheduled to take off this afternoon to bring back a group of pilgrims who visited India. A plane is supposed to take off to India today. However, those people who are arriving to Sri Lanka will be directly sent to quarantine centers. The main reason for that is 2 people who had contracted the coronavirus were also people who had been on a pilgrimage to India. The president advised me to immediately send them to quarantine centers as soon as they arrive in the country, and a special quarantine center had been set for them.
While we are now updated about the Sri Lankan situation with regard to COVID-19, let's now draw your attention to some of the updates that we have been able to gather for you with regard to COVID-19 around the world.
In India, in the last 3 days, several passengers complained of chaos at the Indira Gandhi International Airport due to the mandatory health screening being done to detect coronavirus cases, if any, among those coming into the country. Several passengers posted videos of CISF personnel, besides those from the Airport Health Organization and the Delhi Police, refusing to return their passports without the screening. They also alleged that they were made to wait in queues for hours with other suspected cases, increasing their risk of contracting the infection. Fearing they may not be able to return or may not be able to leave, Hong Kong residents living overseas rushed back today, a day before the city implements a travel measure that requires all travelers to undergo a mandatory 14-day quarantine. Some passengers took extra precautions against the virus, protecting themselves with not only a mask but also gloves, eye covers and plastic raincoats for the journey home. Hong Kong announced the isolation policy for all travelers and joined Singapore in advising against all non-essential travel yesterday. Malaysia announced plans for a partial lockdown starting today as the country reported its first 2 deaths relating to the COVID-19 outbreak yesterday, with the total number of cases climbing to 673. The government has ordered all public events to be cancelled and schools, universities and non-essential businesses to be closed. It has also barred citizens from going overseas and foreigners from entering the country. This will affect many Malaysians who commute to neighbouring Singapore for work. France started implementing its stringent movement restrictions across the country yesterday to combat the COVID-19 outbreak that has claimed 175 lives in the country. As of 12 noon French time yesterday, new and tough measures to limit gathering and curb movements came into effect in France for at least 15 days. Outdoor meetings are banned and friendly or family gatherings will no longer be allowed. Parks in Paris are closed. Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said the country's citizens should abandon all overseas travel because of the coronavirus epidemic and banned all non-essential indoor gatherings of more than 100 people. Morrison upgraded the official travel advisory for Australians thinking of heading overseas to an unprecedented level 4 for the entire world. Anyone who travels during a level 4 ban is warned that the Australian government may not be able to assist them if they get into trouble while abroad. This is what the Australian Prime Minister had to say about panic buying and hoarders.
Stop hoarding. I can't be more blunt about it. Stop it. It's not sensible, it's not helpful, and I've got to say it's been one of the most disappointing things I've seen in Australian behaviour in response to this crisis. That is not who we are as a people. It is not necessary. It is not something that people should be doing. What it does is it is distracting attention and efforts that need to be going into other measures to be focusing on how we maintain supply chains into these shopping centres. There is no reason for people to be hoarding supplies in fear of a lockdown or anything like this. As I've said, we are putting in place scalable and sustainable measures.
And as you are aware, there are various studies, researches and scientific experiments being carried out around the world with regard to COVID-19, and according to a new study, the highly contagious novel coronavirus that is now considered a global pandemic can remain viable and infectious in droplets in the air for hours and on surfaces up to days.
The scientists from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, part of the US National Institute of Health, attempted to mimic the virus deposited from an infected person onto everyday surfaces in a household or hospital setting, such as through coughing or touching objects. They used a device to disperse an aerosol that duplicated the microscopic droplets created in a cough or a sneeze. The scientists then investigated on how long the virus remained infectious on these surfaces. The tests show that when the virus is carried by the droplets released when someone coughs or sneezes, it remains viable or able to still infect people in aerosols for at least 3 hours. On plastic and stainless steel, viable virus could be detected after 3 days. On cardboard, the virus was not viable after 24 hours. On copper, it took 4 hours for the virus to become inactivated. In terms of half-life, the research team found that it takes about 66 minutes for half the virus particles to lose function if they are in an aerosol droplet. That means that after another hour and 6 minutes, 3/4 of the virus particles will be essentially inactivated, but 25% will still be viable.
The Centre for Monitoring Election Violence, or CMEV, has urged the National Election Commission to postpone the general election, citing that the current situation surrounding COVID-19 in the country will not contribute towards ensuring a free and fair election.
Issuing a statement, the CMEV pointed out that the risk of transmitting the virus is high, as many activities concerning the election would involve people being in close contact with each other. This includes the period during the election campaign, the election day, and also during the counting process. The local election monitoring group stated that the spread of COVID-19 could also contribute negatively towards the voter turnout of the day of the election. CMEV said, quote, "This also broadly impacts voters' rights to freely exercise their vote and the ability to hold a free and fair election," end quote. The statement noted that the National Elections Commission can request the President to withdraw the extraordinary gazette on dissolving Parliament and calling for an election. Further, the CMEV said that the NEC can issue a gazette postponing the election after the deadline to accept nominations end.
Taking this situation and keeping you updated about the financial situation in the country as well, Sri Lanka's rupee weakened to 183 rupees and 15 cents to the US dollar on Wednesday, when compared to Tuesday's close of 182 rupees and 58 cents against the dollar. Treasury bill yields fell 19 to 14 basis points across all maturities at the weekly bill auction. Data from the central bank. The 12-month bill weighted average yield fell 16 basis points to 8.32% today from the previous auction a week earlier. The 6-month bill yield fell 19 basis points to 7.82%, and 3-month bill yield fell 14 basis points to 8.27%. The stock market is closed on Wednesday for the third straight session. Now, keeping that in mind, China has extended Sri Lanka a concessionary loan of $500 million upon a request made by the government to financially aid its efforts to combat the COVID-19 pandemic.
Issuing a statement, the Finance Ministry said that the Finance Ministry has inked an agreement with the China Development Bank to obtain the loan. The loan would be given to Sri Lanka with a maturity period of 10 years and a 3-year grace period along with concessionary interest rates. The agreement had been signed in the presence of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, Charge d'Affaires of the Chinese Embassy Hu Wei and Vice President of CDB Ma Zin. The statement issued by the ministry read, "The inflow of the funding is said to be implemented by the end of March and expected to increase the official foreign reserves of Sri Lanka to better manage the finance and fight coronavirus."
With that, we have to cross over to a short commercial break. John will join you on the other side with more news.
Welcome back to the news, and thank you, Chaturanga, for that comprehensive update on the COVID-19 outbreak. Now in more news, leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, said everyone should unite and support the measures taken to curb the spread of COVID-19.
We can overcome this challenge. Do not be fooled with fake and unverified news. Do not panic and act intelligently. We must extend our support to manage this situation and to curb the spread of the pandemic. We are grateful to all citizens who are working hard during such a vulnerable situation to curb the spread of this virus. We must follow the instructions and guidelines during the quarantine process as specified. Sri Lanka has faced many challenges in the past, and we as a nation has always overcome those challenges successfully. We must all be united when facing this crisis and determined to overcome this challenge. Lockdown is in effect in certain countries. This method has been used as an emergency protocol to curb the spread of the coronavirus, and it has proven to be very effective. So we must learn from international practices. We should implement the same measures that were proven effective in foreign countries. We should not panic, and the measures that should be taken should be implemented in a sustainable manner. The people of this country comes first. Everything else comes after that. Elections are not important.
Now in more news from the political arena, the deadline to accept nominations for the general election will end at midnight tomorrow. Certain political parties submitted nominations today as well.
Former Minister Wajra Abeyewardena submitted the nomination list on behalf of the Galle district for the United National Party. Nalin Hewage submitted the nomination list on behalf of the Galle district for the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. The Maubima Janata Pakshaya, Socialist Equality Party, the Jatika Sangwardhana Peramuna and several other independent groups also handed over nominations from the Colombo district. Meanwhile, Nagananda Korituaku handed over his nomination as an independent group from the Colombo district. Palitharange Bandara, who heads the Puttlam district for the United National Party, submitted the nomination list for the UNP today. The Ceylon Workers' Congress, Socialist Equality Party and several parties submitted their respective nomination list for the Nuwara district. The SLPP's nomination list for the Mathura district was submitted by district leader Dallas Alaha Peruma. Sunil Handunethu submitted the nomination list for the Mathura district on behalf of the Jatika Jana Balawegaya. The Jatika Jana Balawegaya, Tamil National Alliance and Vinayagamurthy Muralidharan alias Karuna Amman also submitted nominations for the Digamadula district. Vinayagamurthy Muralidharan is contesting from the Ahila Ilenge Tamil Mahasabha. So far, 13 political parties and independent groups have handed over nominations for the Digamadula district. The United National Party's nomination list for the Hambantota district was handed over today. The list was submitted by district leader former minister Ananda Kularatna. The nomination list for the Jatika Jana Balawegaya for the Hambantota district was submitted by district leader Nihal Galakpatti. The Janasatha Peramunu also handed over its nomination list for the Hambantota district today. Vijitha Herath handed over the nomination list for the Gampaha district on behalf of the Jatika Jana Balawegaya. Meanwhile, the Janasatha Peramunu also handed over its nomination list for the Gampaha district. The Ilangai Tamil Arasu Katchi submitted its nomination list for the Trincomalee district today. The list was submitted by party leader R. Sambandhan. 3 recognized political parties and 2 independent groups submitted nominations for the Trincomalee district. The Jatika Jana Balawegaya submitted its nomination list for the Badulla, Kalutara, K. Galle and Anuradhapura districts. The Tamil National Alliance submitted the nomination list for the one electoral district by the district leader Selvam Adekalanathan. The nomination list for the Jathika Janabala Vege was handed over by Upali Samarasinghe. Former Chief Minister C.V. Vigneswaran submitted the nomination list on behalf of the Tamil People's Alliance for the Jaffna district today. The nomination list for the Jaffna district for the Tamil National Alliance was submitted by Mavesi Nadiraja.
Now, leader of the Jathika Samagi Janabala Vege, Sajith Premadasa, signed his nomination papers for the upcoming general election today.
Sajith Premadasa signed his nomination as the leader of the Colombo district at the party headquarters of the Samagi Janabala Vege.
Now, meanwhile, the Samagi Janabala Vege and the United National Party signed their nomination papers today.
S.M. Marikar and Padali Champika Ranavaka signed their nominations this evening to contest under the Samagi Janabala Vege for the Colombo district under the leadership of Sajith Premadasa. Moreover, several district candidates signed nominations at the party headquarters in Athul Kotte. Dr. Harsha De Silva signed the nomination papers for the Samagi Janabala Vege after resigning from all his portfolios of the UNP at the Sirikota party headquarters.
I came and informed the party leader of my decision and handed over my resignation as the treasurer. He brought me into politics. I have no need to run away and hide my decision. The leader asked me to stay, but I will not revoke my decision.
Meanwhile, the nominations for several districts were signed at the UNP headquarters this morning.
Now, former provincial councillor Susil Kindilpetiya signed nominations to contest the general election under the United National Party this morning at the party headquarters in Sirikota. In more news now, nominations were signed by General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Dayasiri Jayasekara, and several others to contest the upcoming general election.
Frontline leaders of the SLFP signed the nomination papers at the party headquarters of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. National organizer of the SLFP, Duminda Disanayaka, and the spokesperson of the party, Veerakumara Disanayaka, signed nomination papers to contest from the Anuradhapura district today. Dayasiri Jayasekara will be contesting from the Kurunagala district. We were able to increase one more slot to the Anuradhapura district. There were a number of issues from both districts, but with the consent of all organizers, we signed nomination papers. A number of issues have arisen. We have to face them successfully. Even our party is facing this challenge. These needed to be handed over tomorrow and we had to sign before 4 p.m. I was able to hold on to this while facing all obstacles and issues. Nobody has been abandoned. We didn't do this in secrecy. We held talks to hand over nominations. Alliances were made, so we acted according to that. We asked for 3 seats and we got it. So we signed the nomination papers today. We did this wholehearted. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party will not be erased. The attempts made by everyone failed. The Sri Lanka Freedom Party will strengthen further after the election. Meanwhile, nomination papers are prepared to contest the general election under the symbol of the hand in several districts. Journalist Sripal Vanniyarachi signed the nomination papers to contest the upcoming election from the Kalutara district.
Just before we leave you tonight, I would like to remind you that the Colombo Stock Exchange in a statement said that trading on the exchange will resume on Thursday, 19th March 2020. Accordingly, pre-open session would be from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and regular trading will commence after the open auction at 9:30 a.m. The market will close at 2:30 p.m. Well, with that, it's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For News First, I've been John Fernando, and interpreting tonight's news, we had Byron Cruz. While thanking him, it's a wrap. Stay strong, stay safe, and good night.